can be king or you can be rich. And it goes back to Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, where you can be the master of your domain and you could have it done exactly your way and be king. Or you can be rich and you can hire really great people and be a great manager overall.
Hello. This is the Marketing for Accounting Firms podcast. I'm your host, Matt Banker. And today I have a good friend, Josh Streimer, who I've known for a few years now, to talk about their firm, his firm. We'll get into what the they is in that description. Josh, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
All right, here's my first question. And it's kind of a weird one maybe to get started at because it feels like it's probably midway through your story. But from where you sit with your firm now, when you look backwards, what do you feel like is the most important decision that you've made that has gotten you to the success that you've experienced up to this point?
Yeah, so it's definitely been joining accounting communities overall. So I actually met you through PASBA, which is the Professional Association of Small Business Accountants. The reason why I'd say joining communities overall, and specifically in our case, PASBA, is it's given us a community to be able to go to and talk about the same issues that we have, not being alone in what you're going through, regardless of what it is, and having that community to give you support or background has really been, so great for us. It's really answered a lot of questions that we were afraid of for so long. So I would definitely say joining PASBA, and kind of the rest is history.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on the show today is something that we have in common is working with family. So my sibling Nate works for me and is our main operations person. My sister has also worked for me in the past. And you are in a family business. Why don't give us a little bit of that background, or actually give us a description of your firm, how the ownership structure is and your role in it.
So currently the firm is between myself and my mom, Laura. It's weird calling her mom here because I guess my history and my trajectory and all of this, I actually, when I was 13, said I wanted to be an accountant. I just saw my mom coming home and telling me stories about work and got an opportunity to hear about the business. I did an internship with the firm when I was 14 or 15, and I never really looked back. I had a few blimps in between of, like taking a summer off to do, something else. But in general, I always knew that I wanted to be at the firm and I wanted to be in the position that I'm currently in. So right now it's the two of us. We have a firm of, I believe it's 16 people. We have about 132, to be specific, monthly clients that we end up servicing. We do accounting, tax, payroll, and of course some general advisory. We have about 400 total personal tax returns that we end up filing, and then another 200 corporate. So when you mix all of that in there, there's a good amount of chaos that goes on in the day-to-day. And having that opportunity to be able to work with my mom is truly what I say is what I enjoy the most. So I had that opportunity from a very young age to be able to come in. And when I was in here, it was always Laura. It was never mom. So that part is always stuck. It throws people off when they join the firm and they're like, "You're calling your mom Laura?" And I'm like, yeah, it's weird if I don't, trust me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the dynamic. And then actually, as of 2 years ago, my wife Natasha joined the firm as well, a little bit more on the support side, doing some marketing, HR, and back office support type work. So I have my mom and my wife both here keeping me in line throughout the day. There's no getting off the tracks.
Yeah, I don't know how many people would consider that like utopia as like a job situation. I'm not going to rag on you too much, but it is kind of weird. I don't know many 13-year-olds who are saying like, I want to be an accountant when I grow up. Were you interested in that because of the work, or was it the idea of working like the family business? What was the drive for you to want to do that?
I think it was both, actually. I think that's something that really separated me is that I very fondly recall memories of talking with my mom in the kitchen after school or after work when I was younger. And she would tell me about what would go on, whether it
Hmm.
was helping clients, save money on taxes or giving them really impactful, just general business guidance. She would talk to me about, the pleasures of business ownership or
Ooh,
entrepreneurship. So all of those were, things that I enjoyed, and I had a really close relationship with my mom, and I still do. So being in that environment where I was able to work with her and learn from her and then be able to implement my own ideas as well and kind of be able to merge those
yeah.
um, is kind of, how that grew. So
Hmm.
yeah, but yes, I would agree with you. Not very many 13-year-olds say they want to be an accountant and actually become one. I was that random one-off kid in the entire school. So
Yeah. So the firm has been around for a long time, right? When did you first have that conversation of not just that you wanted to be an accountant, but that you wanted to be an owner? And like, how did that process happen? Maybe just, I mean, you can talk through sort of the whole thing because now you are a co-owner, and my understanding is that eventually Laura's going to retire and you're going to run the firm. But maybe talk about that. What were the different stages that you've gone through between the two of you to get to this partnership place now?
what I would tell you is that I think that it actually starts out with my mom on a very selfless perspective and level. I don't know if I could do what she does in working with, my kids one day. I don't know if it's too much pride or I'm too selfish or whatever it may be. But what I would tell you is that when I started out at the firm as an intern, before I started, she interviewed me with one of our other partners at the
Mm-hmm.
time. I formally went through an interview. I formally went through the onboarding process of the early 2000s and
Mm-hmm.
the early days of technology and things like that. And she told me, when you're in the office, I am not mom, I am Laura. And she said it with the partner in the room. I am Laura, and you are going to treat me as a partner. I'm going to hold you to a higher standard. You are going to think it's unfair. You are going to be upset with me, but I'm doing it because everyone else in the office looks to you as the example, fairly or unfairly. And if you are doing something that breaks the mold of what we have created here, they're going to say, if the boss's son is doing it, I'm going to do it too.
Mm-hmm.
So from the beginning, there were plenty of days where I would get a very, very long earful of why I shouldn't be doing something. And I'm not saying it wasn't deserved, but I
Yeah.
think that that kind of really set me up for success. I had really learned from the very beginning the seriousness of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that my goal overall, when I said I wanted to be an accountant and work with my mom when I was, 14, 15, I think that the goal was always to kind of get to that level with her and being partners. So I think that part was always like, that was always my end goal and where I wanted to get. And then as far as kind of like building it out over the years, like that was always kind of the general conversation. Initially, what we had agreed to was once I became a CPA is when I would be allowed to buy into the firm.
Mm-hmm.
My heart isn't as into the CPA side as it
Mm-hmm.
is into firm ownership. So this is actually something that I always kind of stick in the back of my mind, and something I heard from you. It's that you can be king or you can be rich. And
Mm-hmm.
it goes back to the debate of like the Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, where you can be the master of your domain and you could have it done exactly your way and be king,
Mm-hmm.
or you can be rich and you can hire really great people and have a kind of be a great manager
Mm-hmm.
overall. And I think that was kind of more of the personal route that I wanted to go, where I wasn't interested in auditing or governmental accounting. I was
Mm-hmm.
hyper focused on tax and small business accounting, and
Yeah.
that's not very heavily tested in the CPA
Mm-hmm.
exam. So eventually that led to me telling her like, hey, I want to shift my priorities to an enrolled agent, which still carries a credential. And
Mm-hmm.
then from there, we had some general conversations as far as, hey, I had been working at the firm for about 10 years at that point, and I ended up approaching her and saying, like,
Yeah.
hey, at some point, I want to become a partner. And what does that look like if it doesn't involve becoming a CPA? And are you still open to it?
Mm-hmm.
And just after some deep heart to heart, we kind of figured out that there was a path forward.
Yeah.
So that's how we went.
So, and you mentioned that you were going to buy in. This isn't just like a nepo baby mom
Oh
handing
no, no,
off the
no,
firm
no,
to
no,
you,
no.
right?
Yeah, no,
It sounds
no.
like you've really tried in this process, even though there's obviously the family business aspect. You said, "Hey, I want to be a part of this," and she said, "Well, you got to do it the right way. You got to be an employee, treated like an employee, Laura, not mom." And eventually, you were going to buy into the firm. So, what have you worked out as much as you feel comfortable
Yeah,
sharing?
yeah.
How do you figure that out?
I think the goal or the strategy initially, going back to that, once I became a CPA, I'd be able to buy in. That partner's timeline, was around the same timeline as when
Mm-hmm.
I could have been at the earliest ready if I had finished school, became a CPA right away, and bought in. So that partner was bought out by Laura for the remaining whatever percentage it was. So basically, the idea was when I ended up buying in, were factors that went into what was the fair market value of the
Yep.
firm when she had reacquired those shares,
Mm-hmm.
and then how much has it grown since then. And then the other part of it is just kind of financing it, like, hey, we're not going to hand you a check for, X% of the firm overnight.
Right.
So part of it is just based off of, the distributions and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So I
Yeah.
think that's the general answer.
Okay. So obviously, like you have every family has like family dynamics, but I think good partnerships typically you don't have two people who are exactly the same. I know Laura too. I don't think you and Laura are like carbon copies of each other. It's kind of a two-part question. So one is where in working with family have you found your strengths are complementary? What does she bring to the table? What do you bring to the table? And how have you navigated that being a mother and son ownership structure? And then where have your similarities? Do you see any similarities or that common ground being an advantage to you as well? So it's kind of the like, where are you different? Where are you the same? And how do you see that from a business ownership, entrepreneurial standpoint, being pros and cons?
Yeah. So I think that when you look at myself and Laura in terms of, ownership styles or just personality styles, I guess, I'd actually take it back to a book called Traction, where they talk about the visionary and the implementer.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's cheesy using those terms, but that's the best way that I could describe
Yeah.
it. I have a much more long-term focus. I just think more naturally than anything else. I'm at the very early stages of my career. Laura is a master at documenting processes, efficiencies,
Mm-hmm.
getting things completed. And she has the experience as her greatest asset, where she can take one of the ideas I come up with and be like, hey, I can already tell you where the holes are in this. So
Right.
I think that's where there's some good overlap. Outside of that, having the long-term focus approach,
Mm-hmm.
I think that I'm more prone to the technology and focusing on client experience and internal team. In that regards, I think that's where the two of us are very different. So Laura is probably
Yeah.
going to be more so focused on the operations, the technicalities that
Right.
aren't quite as definable.
So you're kind of your role is to sort of like push to move forward and progress and expand and change. And her focus is sort of like stability, continuity, and making sure that we don't break things while we're trying to like
Yeah,
update processes and
yeah.
change the way you do different things. Have you found it difficult to manage disagreement? Partnership in general, I think, is challenging. So how do you manage disagreements? And obviously Laura's been doing this a lot longer than you, and
Yeah.
so she's going to bring a perspective and more seniority, but then you're also navigating this partnership. So there's a family dynamic here for sure, but also I think what's interesting to our listeners and other people is often you'll have a younger, less experienced partner who is driven and wants to be a part of the firm, and then another partner who is more established and also like on a different timeline. That kind of comes inherently with a certain amount of conflict. How have you navigated that? Has that been a challenge, or is it just smooth sailing because, she's your mom and you're her
Yeah.
son and you love each other and all that?
Yeah. I'm laughing as you're going through, thinking about how there are a handful of behind closed door meetings where the two of us are very passionately debating our point of view
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
direction we want the firm to go in. I would say it's not uncommon for the expletives to start flying
Hmm.
out. So I think that part is interesting. What I would tell you actually is it doesn't impact us on a personal level. Like
Hmm.
we have had some very, very heated debates and then like to the point where like I need to go home and it's 3 o'clock on a Friday, and then on the car ride home it's, hey, are you guys coming over for dinner tonight? So it's one of those where like as soon as we walk out the door, it kind of mellows out. What I would tell you is I actually think that that's a real it's I think that that is a bonus
Hmm.
that other people don't have with their non-related family
Yeah,
non-related partners,
right.
because I get to kind of like cool the temperature down by seeing her over the weekend or
Mm-hmm.
talking about one of my kids or her
Mm-hmm.
grandkids, and be able to have that, side conversation of work is work and hey, outside of the office, you're mom again. And I don't have anything wrong with mom. I have a problem with my partner, Laura, but mom is fine. So I think that it builds in that cushion
Mm.
so that when we do come back into the office the following week and we're ready to, discuss again, whatever it may be, I think that the temperature is cooled a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's the best debate on it.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I think, working with my siblings, especially with Nate, we've had arguments, both personal growing up and in the business. And I know not every family and every family relationship can work this way, but I do find that there's sort of an extra layer of connectivity where we know we can argue, disagree, fight about things at work or ideas or ways to go forward. But we know underneath that, it's not relationship breaking. Like we can work through it and we don't have a choice. Like we have to.
Mhm.
And so there is an element of, well, we're not going to let this build up into bitterness or digging in too hard. I think at the end of the day, that relationship can help smooth things over. I can completely imagine, though, in other cases where it just amplifies the pressure to get it right. And so I it sounds great that you all have that dynamic, and I feel there's elements that I've experienced as well. But I mean, I can also totally see how people are listening to the show thinking like I could never work with my
Yeah.
dad or with
Yeah.
my sister or something like that, and that is completely reasonable.
So working with my wife, Natasha, is kind of like the very opposite of that because I have
You
had
mean
plenty
because
of those.
you're the boss in that
Yeah,
situation, right?
correct. Yeah. I am not the boss. I'm pleading the fifth on that one because if she watches that, God forbid, I'm definitely not the boss. But what I would say is like I've had similar conversations with
Hmm.
Natasha, and like my expectation is like, okay, we get the expletives out of the way at the office, and then when we go home, it's gonna be fine. So I've actually started to like shift kind of like how that dynamic is. I have a different working dynamic with Natasha than I do with Laura. So that's kind of that. It really depends on who it is that you're talking to. And I think that everyone is going to have their own unique
Yeah,
relationship with their family member.
yeah. All right. Well, so, and you already mentioned you're kind of in that visionary seat. So we'll do one more question and then take a break here. Where do you want to take the firm? Like, where do you see it going? What's the timeline? Or how does this process look from where you sit now in terms of you eventually kind of taking over and running the firm on your own or whatever that looks like? What's the future hold?
It's a great question, and it's also pretty open. As far as overall firm direction, I think that what I want to create more than anything else is number one, a firm that really cares about its clients. I want to have a team that really believes in what we're doing here. I think more than anything else, I could say that I want our revenue to reach $1 billion or whatever it is, right? The Austin Powers reference there. But no, I mean, I think that my biggest thing is being able to build this ecosystem between clients and staff where everyone believes that we're all doing the right thing and that this is a great symbiotic relationship where
Mm-hmm.
we're really working together and we're all trying to move everyone kind of in that upward trajectory. My overall goal for the firm is really that. I think that focusing on that client and staff person experience is number one, and getting the right people in the office as far as staff members. And in addition to
Mhm.
finding the right clients, I think when you match those two up together, you can build anything regardless of what it is, whether it's accounting services, a car repair shop, marketing. I think it's really just finding that really good working relationship.
Yeah. Very cool. Let's take a break here. This podcast is brought to you in part by Team Up. Team Up helps hire directly for accounting firms in the Philippines. What is Hire Direct? Hire Direct means that you have a direct relationship with your team. There's no middleman. That person is part of their team just like anyone else. They follow your processes, they share your values, and they're part of your culture. Just like hiring someone remotely, but locally to you, it's the same thing. You're just hiring in another country. They join your team meetings and they are fully integrated with your team, same as anybody else. It's really easy. You can find out more information at hireteamup.com. Again, that is hireteamup.com. This podcast is brought to you in part by Works. Here's the thing, clients don't love having a hodgepodge of a bunch of different advisors. Really, they would love it if they could get the advice that they need from one trusted source, and that source could be you. Offering payroll through Works allows you to become more of that advisor. Whether you're referring your clients or you're building a payroll practice of your own, Works will deliver the back office strength and support that your clients expect, and you can stay as the hero and trusted advisor in their story. Learn more about how to partner with Works at works.com. That's WHIRKS.com. All right, we are back. Josh, let's get into how your firm actually works and runs. So let's start with the technology side of things. What softwares and platforms are you using? What's the core, most important stuff that you run your practice on? And then also, if you have opinions, that's what I want to hear. What are you really happy with and the stuff that you're really super glad that you invested in? And if you have anything that you're still figuring out, I think that's an interesting conversation as well.
Got it. So as far as our tech stack is concerned, I think the biggest one to talk about is the project management
Mm-hmm.
platform. So we use Financial Sense. We were very, very early adapters to that
Mm-hmm.
technology, to the platform. We've been very happy with the continued growth and development.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had reached out to the founder who was originally the salesperson, product demo person.
Mm-hmm.
They were the technology support. I reached out to him recently and just mentioned, how great the company is that he built,
Mm-hmm.
just because every time I have an experience with anyone on that team, they're so helpful. I think that the platform overall continues to grow and develop into
Mm-hmm.
more of what's needed and what we don't even know we need, which is great. So Financial Sense is
Mm-hmm.
number one. We end up using Anchor actually as our billing platform.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that's probably the second most impactful change we've made. So Anchor is just a billing platform. The difference is it was built by accountants for accountants.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the way that it works and the overall mold of it makes a lot of sense to us. Again, they're a newer company that only continues to grow, develop, and make the product better. So knowing that we're happy with where the product stands right now, but knowing that they're only continuing to make improvements makes things so much better. It also removes so much of the friction on the billing side. As accountants, I think intrinsically we're all deathly afraid to talk about revenue, finances, billing,
Mm-hmm.
any of that stuff. We're like, oh no, stay away. Anchor makes it very frictionless and great.
I'm going to have to reach out to Anchor and Financial Sense and say, "Hey, you didn't pay for the ads that were on
Right.
my podcast, but
Right.
if you want to send us something." So,
Yeah.
okay, you're
Yeah.
very happy with project management
Yeah.
system payments. Is there anything that you're trying to figure out still from a tech standpoint or that you don't feel like has quite been solved yet?
From a technology standpoint, probably not. If you wanted to throw this in there, I would say if there's a magic formula on the sales side where we could just convert every lead, every contact or lead into a new client, I would say that would be it. But I don't think that technology will ever come out. And thankfully,
Yeah.
we have a pretty good marketing team.
We will get into that in a second. On the tech side, are you using a CRM right now? How are you
Yeah.
tracking sales and leads and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so we are a HubSpot firm. So we had initially started out with another platform, and I think that we half-assed it. I
Mm,
can't think of a non-expletive term for that. We half-assed it. That's the best way to put it as far as implementing and really developing. So when we hired a salesperson, it was the first salesperson that we hired. I literally told them during the interview, I'm like, we do not have a CRM built out. Part of your job is going to be developing the system, building it out, going from there. Quick shout out actually to someone we hired to do some of the build out. His name is George Thomas. Again, he's another referral from another PASBA member. So George really kind of knew what our firm needed without me having to give him, my life story and about the firm.
mm-hmm.
So getting that built out was extremely helpful. I think that as far as HubSpot is concerned, I think, and you've definitely talked about it,
Mm-hmm.
HubSpot is a beast and you
Yeah.
really have to understand it and like really, really understand it to be able to use it to its fullest capacity. I think that we purchased it in January, about 9 months in, and having everything built out and whatever else. I would say, now in mid-September, I would say
Yeah.
that we've got it pretty streamlined to be giving us the reporting and the information that we want to see on a weekly, monthly.
Mm-hmm.
Quarterly is still a little bit fresh just because there's not as much technology, but I think that that's been really helpful. So I would say that HubSpot has been a good investment. And if you're going to go with a CRM, I think you have to be all in or all out.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't half-ass it. So
Yeah. I'll throw my 2 cents in here. It's actually 2 comments. One is our kind of point of view these days is HubSpot is probably the best in class option that's out there for firms. The only downside is that they tend to be expensive to get all of the functionality that you want. And so I think that goes to your point. It's not something that you can just kind of tiptoe into. It's hard to get the real benefits out of it if you don't have access to all of the features. On the other side, I see a ton of firms who invest in a CRM, don't have the capacity to make use of those features, and then it's just a really expensive piece of software that kind of sits dormant
right.
without giving them benefits. So getting it set up for your needs is important. Having really good data going in, like the contacts and understanding what things you're tracking is really important. So that's the
Just to
main thing. Yeah, go ahead.
just to touch on a few more things and just to kind of expand on it, what I would end up telling any other accounting firm out there that is listening or considering it is I think that this is very identical to the type of services that we end up providing. Hiring
Mm-hmm.
a professional, you're not going to waste your own time. You are going to get exactly what you're looking for. And especially if you're new to the CRM type of platform and technology, it's a totally different beast. And I think that it really takes a lot for people to learn and understand it. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, you can, but it's going to be a very big time investment and it's going to be a lot of learning. The name of the platform that we were previously on, but it was a lot more of a do it yourself type of
Mm-hmm.
platform and it was cheaper. I think that that's one of those you can get cheap, good, or quick, and you get to pick two out of the three. I don't know if we were getting two or even one out of the
Yeah.
three. So
Yep.
that's kind of the idea. I think that I would encourage anyone out there to look for someone to help them get it
Mm-hmm.
started or just mentally prepare for a huge time investment up front to make sure that you are learning it, understanding it, so that you can properly implement and utilize within your firm.
Yeah, we generally, I mean, from my company, we're generally platform agnostic, but we find a handful of ones that we like and that we recommend. So HubSpot is a good one. The other one that I really like these days is Go High Level. They're another kind of newer, yeah, fairly new company. I think that they do a good job on some of the AI integrations that they're thinking about and thinking about the new world of marketing. But for sure, HubSpot is kind of the legacy. They're a legacy company. They've been around for a long time, but I think they've really set the standard for marketing software in this space. So I'm a fan of that. Maybe tell me about your marketing team and setup. Maybe I'll give some context here. We've worked with your firm in a bunch of different ways. And I know different than a lot of the accounting firms that I've talked to outside of the PASO model, a lot of firms in PASPA have sales teams and marketing teams, whereas I think a lot of firms have more of a partnership sales model. Talk to me about, I know it's been a journey for you as well. Where are you at now? What have you learned along the way in terms of the team setup and how you're approaching sales and marketing?
So sales and marketing has definitely been a journey. I think that we've become a lot more serious over the past, I would say, 2 years. So our journey kind of started with getting our originally produced website up to date, which is what we had you guys
Yeah.
do initially. From there, we actually just went through a rebranding, and you guys redid the website again, or I
Mhm.
guess really just migrated it to our newer domain. We ended up getting away from the traditional last name and last name PA or
Mhm.
LLC or whatever it may be. I know that some states have different laws as far as what the name of the firm can
Mhm.
or cannot be. But we wanted we're in Florida. We wanted to get away from just last names. We wanted to be able to create a brand within our firm
Mhm.
that wasn't me or Laura. So that was a big part of it. From there, as far as our marketing journey is concerned, so our name change and rebranding took place at the end of June of this year. So we're 2 or 3 months into it. We worked with a local marketing firm, Forethought, and they were able to really help us with planning this out in great detail.
Mhm.
So we went through like a very intensive marketing campaign and strategy with them, and we're continuing to work with them, to date in terms of
Mhm.
some of that more like hyper focused in terms of client communication and rebranding and getting our name out there. And
How,
then we're all, mhm.
let me just interrupt. How painful was the rebrand, and do you have any regrets on how you went about it, or is this something you wish you would have done sooner? What's that been? It's been painful sometimes, right?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, there were I think that the best way to describe it is that when we had initially chosen a marketing firm for the renaming, I think that in our minds, we thought it was going to go a lot smoother, quicker, better than it did. It led us to making a decision to move to our now current
Hmm.
marketing firm. When we actually shifted marketing firms, and we ended up getting the name that we wanted to and
Hmm.
a better time span. It still took a lot of time and money, and it was very expensive overall. But what I would tell you is, I think it opened our eyes up to more of the marketing concepts that I mean, you've talked a lot about. So, like when I would go into those meetings, it was funny because I felt like I heard your voice in the back of my mind as I was like personalizing some of it for
Yeah.
them. And that's kind of where like I've had a great bridge with you as well as the local marketing firm where I think that you guys do an absolutely phenomenal job on the marketing and the insight and the research and everything
Hmm.
else. And I was able to work with someone locally that was able to bridge some of the internal shortfalls as far as like getting the work done and things like that. And I think that was the most important thing for us. It was more so than anything else, it was a soul searching journey of
Hmm.
who do we want to be? What is our real intention? Like, what is it that we're trying to create with this brand? So I think that was the cool part. If I had suggestions for anyone else, I think I would say really know who you're going to work with or what you're desiring and don't undercut, the marketing experts. I think that everyone's like, oh, it's marketing. I think
Yeah.
that finding someone that you're aligned with really well makes a difference and then kind of go from there. So,
Yeah. Branding and logo design and names and things that from a marketing agency standpoint, it's a really challenging area because you got to get it right. And so for a company, it's kind of like for accounting firms when someone asks, well, how much is it going to cost? There's certain projects you just don't know what the scope is until you start
mhm,
working on it. And there are some times when everything just goes quickly and smoothly and you're like, we paid how much for something that just took a month? And then there are other times when it just takes time. Everybody's got to be in alignment. You got to find that name or that brand that you like. And you can't just cut it off when you're like, well, you paid for, 120 hours. And so we're up. So this is the brand that you've got. You're going to live with this for a long time. And so it is worth the other lesson I would take from that is you take the time and you spend the money to get it right, because it's not worth going through that process to end up with something that you're not happy with and then you're going to have to change later. It can be really disruptive to your clients and to your efforts to
Yeah.
grow your visibility and your community and all of that.
That's what we spent a lot of time talking about. And I think that what I would say is that first marketing agency that we worked with or firm that we worked with, there was nothing against them. I just think that we were misaligned in terms
Mm,
of who they were and who we were. And I think that was the biggest like mismatch. It's not to say that, another firm wouldn't go to them and be
mm,
just as happy with the results. It
mm,
was something where I think there was misalignment in terms of who we were, who they were, and what we were both looking for from the engagement.
mm,
So that's where we shifted. Like we very much could have taken the easier road, which would have been
mm,
picking a name that we didn't like as much or that
mm,
didn't meet whatever criteria we had. But we had that exact thought in our mind of, hey, you're in for a penny, in for a pound. If we're going to do this, we have to get it right. And that's actually another reason why we hired that local firm
mm,
is to be able to make sure, like, hey, we want to nail this rebrand because if it's up to me, I'm never going to rebrand again. I'm never going to change the name
yeah.
again. It's like, this is it. Let's get it right. And it's this like long-term investment that just is an upfront cost. So
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's shift to more of like the lead gen and sales side of things. Where are you currently getting your leads from? What's that process? Who's in charge of the sales conversations? What's working and what's not working?
I can tell you a lot of what's not working. Um, Actually, towards the end of last year, we hired our second. We ended up making a switch sometime earlier in this year when we
Hmm.
realized, hey, this isn't working with the first person. So that new person that's come in has done a great job, really kind of commanding the position, learning and
Hmm.
understanding, working through HubSpot. Their background is actually in entrepreneurship. They owned a business previously, so they understand a lot of those pain points that prospective clients may be talking about, and they can bring in our perspective as the accounting firm. And I think
Yeah.
that that's actually really helpful. It's not to say that when you go to the job market and you're looking for a salesperson, you're going to find that exactly. I think that it worked out really well for us, and I'm really happy with where our sales team, it's the one person. As far as internally, what we end up doing in terms of lead generation, it's been a lot of getting out within the community. So we joined the local Chamber of Commerce. We're in a pretty densely populated area in South Florida with a lot of small businesses in it. Our geographical map is kind of slanted because of it, because we have the Everglades literally to the west of us. So if I opened up the
Hmm.
blinds right here, I'd be waving at an alligator. So what ends up happening is it's a lot more densely populated versus being spread out. It works to our advantage because if and when we do get out, we're able to visit more businesses or visit more whoever
Hmm.
it is that we are trying to target with shorter visits because everything is a little bit more
Yeah.
densely populated without being in a bigger area.
And
We're used, mhm.
I was going to say, your salesperson is outbound focused.
Yep,
They're not just fielding inbound leads.
correct. Yeah, correct. So we use Sales Intel as our like database search.
Hmm.
I think that that's kind of been mixed results. What we've seen is that it's really good at getting us like bigger companies. But like for us at least, those bigger companies are going to be like kind of more on the top end of the spectrum of our
Yeah.
ICP. So it creates like smaller results of really fitting our ideal client, what
Hmm.
we're looking for. But really getting involved with the community has been the biggest thing. We've made, substantial investments in the website, which has been extremely helpful, as well as Google and with ads and SEO work.
Hmm.
Both of those have been, I think there's mixed results there.
Yeah.
And I also want to tailor that with, we're less than a year into it. So I
Yeah.
think you could probably tell me my
Well,
stats better than I could,
yeah,
but
let
yeah.
me to give the context. We've been doing some local SEO and Google Ads. We're talking right now in September of 2025. A couple months ago, we sent out an email to all of our clients that were doing ads to say that we're seeing really mixed results. And by mixed, I mean like some places are working well and other places were really not performing at all. And we were trying to figure out, we're in a weird place in the internet right now. I think a lot of things are the way that people use the internet to find businesses is changing. there's this whole new category of like AI optimization and all of that. So, I mean, my perspective, this is turning into like a client update call, apparently.
Yes.
My perspective is that things are shifting and you're doing the right things for, we'll just label it, you're a generalist firm with a geographic location. And so, like, local SEO, so you show up on maps, is still generally a good investment. Google Ads, locally targeted, also can work in certain markets. And then you got your outbound salesperson who is specifically targeting the businesses nearby. Those tend to be the top tactics that we generally would recommend for a local kind of generalist firm. But because of the internet, I think we are seeing some shifts, and some of the things that used to be pretty predictable are a little less predictable and harder to make work at this point.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we've seen. Something that I'll definitely touch on is that anytime that we do talk to a new client that finds us through Google or whatever else, having them go through our website,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not an overstatement or an exaggeration, every single time they'll end up mentioning, you have a great website. I was
Mm-hmm.
looking through it and I found blah, blah, blah. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you very much. We really appreciate it. So I think that having the websites will always be important. Also, something that I've noticed in my own like personal searches, and actually this was a conversation that Natasha and I were having, just
Mm-hmm.
randomly, as far as like AI being used as the search engine and kind of replacing Google.
Mm-hmm.
What I've found is that like I've tried this with other like services other
Mm-hmm.
than mine, and I think that AI, or specifically ChatGPT, does a worse job than just going and doing a Google search on your own. So what
Mm-hmm.
I've found is that it will pull information from essentially review services, mainly Yelp,
Yeah.
as this is where we're going to collect information from as far as our data, and then we're going to tell you here's five different whatever services that you're looking for. They may
Yeah.
not be good, they may not be open, they are just going to give you five random ones. And even when you like prompt it further or more specifically, it's still not that good. At
Yeah.
that point, you're just better off going directly to Google, Yelp, whatever other review site that's
Mm-hmm.
going to lead you to those results, because chat isn't going to do it for you. As far as like the fear of, okay, well, if people are going to chat, even though the results aren't going to be good, how do you get seen? My answer is I don't know. I don't know if I want the person just picking the first accounting firm that they look up. I think there's some level of research. I don't think it's akin to, looking up where should I go for dinner tonight. I
Yeah.
think there's a little bit more work into it. So like my point of view is if I show up in the top five of whatever it is, AI, Google, Yelp, my goal is I just want someone to click on our page and go to our website, because I think that our website does a good enough job of explaining who we are, what services we provide,
Yeah.
general understanding of costs, go from there. And to me, that's the goal. So
Yeah. I mean, I think you're kind of describing there's the two pieces of the equation. You need traffic, you need people to get to your site, and then you need conversion, which is once they're there, you have to have a compelling reason for them to want to call you. And I do think we see it all the time where firms overinvest in one and underinvest in the other. They have a great website and then they have no way to get people to the website, so they're not getting sales. Others
yeah,
are like, we just need traffic. We're constantly meeting people, networking, and our site is from 2013. And so like that's really harming them in terms of making that sale happen. We're kind of running up against time here, so I think we should wrap up. Josh, where can people find you? Is there anything that in terms, this is mostly other accounting firm owners and marketing people in firms. Where can they find you? Is there anything that you would promote or mention as far as yeah?
I'm not a huge presence on social media. If you want to follow me, LinkedIn is a great place. Beyond that, I know that you and I will converse on Twitter, and yeah, I think that's more on the personal side than anything else. They often,
Terrible Premier League soccer
right.
take. Find
I
Josh
was
on Twitter.
For the listeners, what I would tell you is I'm a fan of the European winning Tottenham Hotspurs, and Matt's team hasn't. Can you name the last European trophy you
Well,
guys
yeah,
won?
I'm a fan of the Tottenham Hotspur defeating Arsenal. So that's the.
All right. Yeah, yeah. Here we go.
All right. Yeah, well, we better end it
Yeah.
before we get into it too much. Josh, it is great to have you here. The last thing I'll say is, again, marketingforaccountingfirms.com. That's where you can find us. We have a marketing incubator group. So if anyone who's listening is doing your marketing on your own or with limited money, but a little bit of time, that incubator, it's a mastermind type group that we teach and coach. And so you can find more details about that at the website. I think we'll leave it there.
Sounds good.
Talk to you
Thanks
later.
for having me, Matt.
Thanks,
Yep.
Josh. Bye.
Yep. Bye.
This podcast is brought to you in part by Works. It's great to be able to diversify the services that you offer, and payroll obviously can be a pretty profitable service line for most accounting firms. But it can also be kind of a minefield. There's a lot to get a hold of and handle that you don't make mistakes. That's why a lot of firms choose to partner with Works. They give them the services, the support, the expertise to build a scalable payroll practice for their clients without the risk of having to build it from scratch. This is a different way that most payroll providers work. It's the smarter and safer way to grow your payroll practice. So if you want to learn more about how to partner with Works, you can find out information at works.com. That's WHIRKS.com. This podcast is brought to you in part by TeamUp. TeamUp is a recruiting firm that helps you hire direct in the Philippines. But how do you hire in the Philippines? Do you need to understand Philippine employment law? There really are two main options. You can hire a contractor where you pay them directly and they handle their own tax and compliance, or you can work with an employee of record, or it's similar to a PEO. They handle the payroll and compliance. They pay the employee, you pay them, but they aren't involved in any of the day-to-day work or management of your employee. TeamUp is not an employment of record, but they can refer you to one if you want. Either way, the day-to-day experience is the same. So if you've been considering hiring in the Philippines, but you're worried about everything being above board from an employment and compliance standpoint, TeamUp can help guide you through that process. You can learn more at hireteamup.com. Again, that is hireteamup.com. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Marketing for Accounting Firms podcast. If you liked this conversation and found it valuable, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It's really good for the algorithm and it helps other firm owners find this show. You can subscribe to our weekly Marketing for Accounting Firms newsletter at marketingforaccountingfirms.com. And you can connect with me, Matt Banker, on LinkedIn or Twitter. We hope you tune in next time for another episode of Marketing for Accounting Firms.